What if I told you he wasn't the greatest? That a country would fail to protect its greatest natural resource? That sometimes it is a matter of life and death? That no one can outrun the truth? What if I told you he's the only true Cubs fan? That you could heal all wounds with a fight song? That the man no one could stop tragically was? What if I told you running a marathon is easy? 30 stories, 30 filmmakers, 30 years. ESPN's critically acclaimed 30 for 30, presented by Levi's.
Born on May 6, 1937, in Clifton, New Jersey, Rubin Carter was the fourth of 7 children. Growing up in Paterson, New Jersey, Carter lived a troubled childhood due to his race and his stutter. Thus, he became a target of oppression and was forced to learn some crude self-defense, foreshadowing his future career in boxing. Racial tensions were still prevalent in the country, as the civil rights movement wouldn't even begin until his adulthood. At the age of 12, Carter was arrested for stabbing a man, claiming that the man was a pedophile and that he was simply defending his friend. Carter was sentenced to a 6-year term, and in 1954 he escaped prison and decided to join the Army since his options were limited as an 18-year-old out of prison. He served in a segregated corps and began training as a boxer. He fought several bouts for the Army, but had trouble following standard military protocol. He faced 4 court-martials and was discharged from service. After returning to Paterson in 1956, he was arrested for his escape from the reformatory and was sent to the Annandale Reformatory for 10 months. After his release in 1957, he again was arrested for assault and theft. At the Trenton State Prison, he revived his interest in boxing.
Oh, I didn't see you there. Growing up, I wouldn't say I was a troubled kid, but as a kid, I did find myself in a lot of trouble. I wouldn't say the Army was for me. I couldn't really fit in there, but I did find boxing. But right now, I gotta focus on this case.
After his release from prison, he entered professional boxing and won his first fight on September 22, 1961. His aggressiveness and quickness in the ring soon earned him the nickname Hurricane. Of his first 21 fights, he won 13 by knockout. His boxing abilities were recognized in 1963, and he featured among the top 10 middleweight contenders by the boxing magazine The Ring. The most significant victory of his career was his win against the then welterweight champion Emil Griffith in December of 1963 during a non-title match. At this point in his career, Carter was widely respected and was then ranked 3rd of the contenders to win the world middleweight title.
Feeling pretty good right now. The top of my game. No one can stop me. They don't call me the Hurricane for nothing. If anyone wants to try to take my title away, they can see me in the ring.
On the night of June 17, 1966, 2 black men shot and killed 3 white people at the Lafayette Bar and Grill in Paterson. Earlier that night in Paterson, a black bar owner was murdered by a white man. Therefore, the police suspected that the triple murder was a racial retaliation. Rubin Carter's car, a white 1966 Dodge Polara, allegedly resembled the killer's getaway vehicle, so the police pulled him over and interrogated him and his friend, John Artis, later that night. 2 of the surviving victims reported that the shooters were black males, but they were unable to identify Carter or Artis. Carter and Artis were released later that night.
I got pulled over last night. Some fuss about my car being at the scene of a murder. Well, I had no idea what they were talking about, but I was able to be let go.
In October of 1966, while Rubin Carter was training to fight the then middleweight champion Dick Tiger, he was arrested for a triple homicide. There were 3 key witnesses in support of the prosecution present at the trial. Patricia Valentine, a woman who lived above the bar, claimed that she had a good view of the getaway car. Her description was of a white car with triangular or butterfly-shaped taillights and dark license plates with yellow or gold lettering. This led police in Paterson to arrest Mr. Carter and Mr. Artis, who were riding in a similar white car. She told the grand jury in 1966 that she thought Mr. Carter's car was a 1966 Dodge Monaco, whose taillights light up in 2 triangles across the rear of the car. When asked to draw those lights in court, Miss Valentine drew 2 triangles tapering toward the center of the car. She said, under oath, that the entire portion of the shape she drew emitted light. Mr. Carter's car, however, was a 1966 Dodge Polara. This model had similar taillights, sharing the triangular shape with the Dodge Monaco, but only the outside portions of the lights shined. When Miss Valentine was put back on the stand for further examination, she was given a photograph of Mr. Carter's car and asked to circle the portion of the triangles she had seen lit up. She circled just the outside portion, describing the lights on a 1966 Dodge Polara. It was clearly a surprise to the defense attorneys, who had heard her describe, quote, over and over and over, as Louis Steele, Artis's defense attorney, said afterward, butterfly-shaped lights, with the entire light filled. Valentine's contradicting explanations suggest that she modified her testimony to see Carter guilty. Additionally, Alfred Bellow and Arthur Dexter Bradley testified that he had seen Carter running down the street after the shooting. Bellow had said he had seen 3 black men in a white car before he decided to go into the bar to buy a pack of cigarettes. As he approached the tavern, he claimed he heard shots and saw 2 black men emerge with a shotgun and a pistol. He got a clear look at them and fled as the 2 got in the white car and drove away. Despite the fact that the defense produced witnesses who verified Carter and Artiste's presence at another bar at the time of the shooting, they were both given life sentences for each of the 3 murders. Additionally, tests for gunshot residue were not taken, nor fingerprints recorded at the scene.
A life sentence? This is bonkers. I didn't even do anything. I didn't beat the case.
Then, in 1974, Bellow and Bradley both separately recanted their testimony, revealing that they had lied in order to receive sympathetic treatment from the police. Also, an incriminating tape of a police interview with Bellow and Bradley surfaced, and the New York Times attempted to expose the discrepancies of the case. The convictions were overturned by the New Jersey Supreme Court, and a second trial was to follow. More mystery surrounded the case after the witnesses then recanted their recantations. Carter and Artist were released on bail during the trial, but remained free for only 6 months. They were convicted once more in 1976 at the conclusion of the trial. In that same year, the famous musician Bob Dylan released the song Hurricane, in which he highlighted the injustice found in America through Rubin Carter's story. He criticized Carter and Artist's wrongful convictions and called for a reform to the racist justice system of the United States.
Over to the side of the road, just like the time before and time before that. In Patterson, that's just the way things go. If you're black, you might as well not show up on the street unless you want to drive ahead.
Evidently, Carter's case had an impact that reached beyond the realm of sports. In 1980, Carter developed a relationship with teenager Lester Martin, who had read his autobiography. Martin's benefactors, most notably Sam Chiton, Terry Swinton, and Lisa Peters, developed a bond with Rubin Carter and started to work for his release. In the summer of 1983, they began to work with Carter's legal defense team to seek a writ of habeas corpus from the U.S. District Court Judge H. Lee Sorokin.
I must prove my innocence. The Supreme Court must see that I was unfairly tried years ago.
On November 7, 1985, Sorokin overturned the second convictions after finding that the prosecution committed grave constitutional violations at the second trial. The first significant section of this newspaper article is from Judge Sorokin himself, claiming Carter's original convictions in 1976 to be based on an appeal to racism rather than reason, and concealment rather than disclosure. Here the wrongdoing and misjustice of Rubin Carter's original trials and convictions are highlighted by a Dartmouth and Harvard graduate. Sorokin then insists Carter and Artist had been denied their congressional rights of due process due to evidence being withheld and pressured witnesses who seemed more interested in convicting them than finding the guilty suspect. Not to mention, it states that Judge Sorokin found that the prosecution had withheld from defense lawyers about a lie detector that he said would have impeached testimony by the only prosecution witness who placed Mr. Carter and Mr. Artist at the murder scene. How the tables have turned. Who's the liar now? And this has nothing to do with the actual guiltiness or innocence of the defendants, as Judge Sorokin stated, that all goes down the drain if the defendant's rights had been abused at the trial. Judge Sorokin even noted that there were many conflicting versions of events involving the crime.
Following his release, Carter went on to become a political activist for the wrongfully convicted. Carter lived in Toronto, where he became a Canadian citizen and the executive director of the Association in Defense of the Wrongly Convicted from 1993 until 2005.